The title of Nisargadatta's formative work is called I Am That. And I say that because it's not titled, Who Am I? It's not about a who. It's about a that. The who am I idea deeply personalizes the spiritual journey and in many ways reduces it into arriving at something that explains it to you, that makes it better, that makes it clear, that allows you to walk around with a kind of inner comfort or assurance that you know who you are. And the problem with knowing who you are is that you aren't a who. So figuring it out may be comforting and satisfying and temporarily worthwhile. But the journey from who to that is sort of the adventure that we're on. And it really requires, if there's a requirement, if there's a goal at all, moving to a point where that is recognized. And it's such an obscure word, that. It really seems to represent everything else. Otherness. Other. If you start pointing at that, which is worth doing, and listening to the words I am that, the mind has a really difficult time dealing with whatever that means. I am that, pick anything, this tripod, this camera, you, the wall, the light bulb, the sky, the clouds, the trees, the flowers, the couch, the floor, my wife. I mean, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. What does it mean, I am that? Well, it's pretty simple. You are not this separate thing. If you want to listen to Nisargadatta's teaching and the title of his book, you are not this, you are that. You are not who, you are that which is. How do you come to grapple with the seemingly impossible ability to grasp that idea? I am that. How can I be that? It really doesn't, in a way, make sense. On some level it makes sense, but on another level it's not experiential. You walk around going, this is who I am. And you make peace with the who I am. You make peace, ideally you make peace with somebody who is, of a certain gender, of a certain age, of a certain time period, of a certain history. You make peace with all of the stuff you've been given in the weaving together of your life. And you start to go, this is who I am, and even what I am. But it's so specific. It's so small, it's so contained. It may be big to you, but in the larger scheme of things, it really isn't what you are. And most of your drive in life, your ambition, your Your joy and your suffering comes from this idea of being a who. And it's very hard to imagine being a that, because intellectually it kind of doesn't stop. The measurement, the diagnosis, the exploration of thatness is so big, and it so dwarfs the who. And you can at least pay attention to the who. But if you really pay attention to who I am, it really doesn't stop with your history, with your name, with your body, with your gender. It doesn't stop with your age or your sense of ambition and what you want out of life. It doesn't stop with that. That's kind of like a middle ground. The who has a depth to it. It goes very, very deep. The problem with its going very, very deep is that most of us are very afraid of that depth. We don't know how to go deep for a lot of reasons. One, we don't have enough light to shine on where we're headed. We feel in the depth of being cut off from ourself, cut off from the known, cut off from the visible. We're just going into this place, that exploring a sense of self that starts to lead into some very uncomfortable spaces, like where do I come from? Why was I born? What is this body that I have? How did I get here? These are all questions that start to happen as you start to go into yourself. And there come places that are really tight squeezes, and you go, wow, this is really uncomfortable. This self that I'm in is very limited. It's very squished into this bodily sensibility. And as you start going deeper, you start to feel something expanding beyond that, and it's kind of scary. What is this thing that kind of wafts out of the containment of me? As much as it's frightening, I am not limited. And the deeper you start to go, there's a sense of largeness that starts to happen. And the journey into that space is not really an intellectual journey where you're looking and exploring and taking notes, because after a while, it's just so dark, there's nowhere to put those notes. The verbs and the words and the nouns and everything that you're trying to throw into the mix somehow don't make sense in the deeper parts of who you are. What happens is you begin to go into that journey in some kind of visceral, emotional, feeling way. And you start to go, words don't work here. Thoughts don't work here. It's really another world. The depth of me is really inexpressible, and yet it is experiential and knowable. And as you start to do this quiet journey inward, the meditative journey you may call it, the journey inward becomes so vast that there is nothing but a kind of sense of being that is vibrantly alive. And it has a kind of knowledge of its own that does not translate easily or directly into ego and egocentric being. It's sort of a knowledge that exists at that base, deep, deep down. It is a kind of like creatures in the bottom of the ocean having lives that are so different than our life. And yet they are beings, they are entities, they are alive. And this is a kind of awareness that is not even contained in the flora and fauna and the fish and the beings at the bottom of the ocean. It's contained in the ocean itself. There's a kind of weight and a substance and a depth of reality that is at the depth of your being, and it cannot be approached through mind, and it cannot be approached through words. It can only be approached through an experiential truth that starts to go deeper and deeper to the degree that you are willing to let go of everything. And what you experience in that depth is, here I am trying to give words to it, but I would call it something like fullness, wholeness, knowing, wisdom, clarity. And one of the things that it knows is that there is no who there. You have arrived at that. You have arrived in the depth of your being at that. I am that. And as you start arriving back to the surface, you rise up, back into your body, back into your mind, back into your thoughts, back into your head, behind your eyes, behind your ears. You start to look at life, and you bring one piece of information back with you. I am that. That which is within you, and you start to look around you, and you start to understand, oh, I am that. Nothing that is or exists that can be witnessed, smelled, tasted, loved, hated, touched, imagined, nothing is other than that. And that is what you are. You are the depth of all being and the totality of expression of all being. You are that. It's not cognitively created. It's not something you know in your mind. Your mind is a witness maybe to it, and in some ways can interpret it and play with it, but you can't know it through your mind. You can only let go of your mind in order to be it. And when you let go of your mind, it's not like you become it. You have always been it. Always been it. The mind is what comes into being. The body is what comes into being to know it and to become a who. And the body has this incredible gestation into who-ness and identifies with everything and loves everything, but suffers the reality of the temporality of everything, the impermanence of everything. And there's a lot of pain and difficulty in all of that. And so every so often something rises from the depth, like a teaching or a teacher, someone who is established in the depth of the ocean of reality, and they come back and they go, shh, shh, quiet, shh, follow me. And they try to take you down with a hug, with a look, with a gesture. They try to lead you back into these scary spaces of unknowing, back deeper, 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 deeper into this place where you know as well as the person or the being showing you what you are. And it is a really interesting journey because it can't be led through any kind of knowledge, any kind of memory, any kind of history. It is just happening by itself. It leads you back to the truth of knowing that you, that I am that. If you haven't begun that journey in your life, during your lifetime, which is true for most people, I would imagine, if you haven't begun that journey, you will get awakened to that journey as you leave the who-ness. Who am I? At some point, dies. And we are told, and those who have visited the that, have a true sense that when the who goes, that remains. And if that remains, and if it is true, as Nisargadatta said, I am that, then I am continues to exist. It continues to exist as that. And what is that? Well, it certainly contains everything you know, everything you've ever dreamt, everything you've ever thought of, everything you've ever wanted, everything you were afraid of, everything you hoped for, everything you hoped would never happen. It has everything. It has the whole planet Earth, it has the moon, it has the solar system, it has the galaxies, it has the universe, and in some teachings it has one universe after another universe after another universe after another universe. And where do you fit into all of that? Well, at this moment in time, you are a particular witness to that. But at every moment, if you take the journey, I would say it's the journey you were born to take, but not many people take it. But if you take the journey to sit still and dive deep, as they say, to let go of your fears, to let go of your knowledge, to let go of what you know, to allow yourself to be clueless in the universe, you will start to go down, 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 and it will begin to feel like up, up, up. It's really interesting. The journey to the depth of being is also a journey to the heights of being. It's a simultaneous expansion, and you become aware that I am that. I am that. The who will not last long. You will have a journey, and you will be very identified with that journey. If you can begin to know that you are that at the same time that you are who you are, you will have this rich tapestry of experience and life that you will fall in love with. Because you will realize the who I am and the that which has formed in manifested reality is one thing. It's all that. And what is happening in the journey that I've been taking, in this aging process, which means that I'm coming to the end of the who. I've already recognized the that, but the who is still living and breathing and walking and talking. As that starts to decompose, disintegrate, I get to witness this thing that I wish to share with everyone, which is how in love you become with that which was always there, that which you are. You become in love with the trees, the sidewalks, the people in your life, the food you eat, the dreams, the fears, the ambitions, the hopes, the identities. You fall in love with this whole thing, and it is a poignant love. Poignant. And you can't hold on to it because it doesn't work that way. But you love it moment to moment to moment in a way that is called flow. It's not a holding process, because if you hold the moment, you get out of whack. How can you hold this moment? The next one's already arrived, and the next one's already arrived. What can you do with that? So you have to let it go, and you let it go, and so what you have is flow. And this flow is just happening and happening, and that flow goes up and down and in and out and everywhere, and it contains everything there is. And there is a part of you, not that witnesses it and knows it, but realizes it is it. You are that. You are that. And it becomes alive in a way you never could have imagined. Because the who that's doing the imagining is so heavy and dense and involved that until it starts to disintegrate and break apart, again, part of the joy and the amazement of old age, as all of that starts to happen and you let it happen, the witnessing of the being that you are, the that you are, becomes really prominent. And the wonder of it is magnified in ways that I only wish each of you could witness, and my prayer is that you will. And when I sit with you as a teacher, and the thatness of being arises, it flows into the who-ness of you, and it starts to disintegrate the who. It starts to break it down. It starts to see where it's coagulated. It starts to see where it is fundamentally holding on to a false idea or image. It starts to see the fear zone. It starts to see the I am a person that is false and not satisfying and not joyful. And what it does is it goes into those spaces and it starts to break it down. That's the one value of having a teacher. The only value of having a teacher is there's somebody helping you with this process. The universe is here to help you. Teachers are helpers. That's all they are. They're just helpers. They help you on the way. They're not to be deified. They're not to be turned into something beyond this clarity of presentation that helps you find your way back to that. That's all that's going on. And if you've been teaching for a long time, you really do develop a certain capacity to express and be at one with that which you are. And you start to communicate that to others energetically. It's not just verbally, because this verbal thing is getting processed and lost in translation. But the reality of sitting and teaching is the verbs, the nouns, the pronouns, all of that goes away, and there's just pure being. And it goes in, and it is wise beyond anybody's imagination. And it just goes, and I feel it as it goes into the deepest crevices of your fear zone, of your ignorance zone, of your hesitating zone. It goes right into all of those places in you that doesn't want to let go. And it just throws these tiny switches. It just goes, doop, unknots this little thing that's been held there maybe for 4,000 lifetimes, who knows. It just goes, doop, and it's gone. And that which is within feels when it happens, and it goes, yep, good, okay, next, good, okay. And it's just kind of like a little computer, just going through you and going, okay, fix that, do that, okay, make that work, okay, do it. And it just keeps happening, and you feel it. And I feel it not only in the teaching zone, but in the waking zone, when I'm sitting with my grandchildren, or with my wife, or with anybody, and a moment comes and it goes, fix that. You know, it just, don't bite, don't go there, don't engage that thing. It's just a little tiny thing, and you see something in a person that wants to be engaged, you know, and you go, doop, and it goes away. And you've just freed them of a huge drama, and you freed yourself of a huge drama, and you start to have this life of very tiny little microscopic moments that just go, okay, not a problem, no big deal, it's okay. That's really what it comes down to. The ultimate of a spiritual life is, okay, that's really all it is. Not more than that. And if you're looking for more than that, well, you know, you've got your own drama to create. You've got your own who am I thing. You know, I saw the beginning of opening episode of a program on Netflix called what's it called? It's
Wild Country.
Wild Country, about Rajneesh, who I remember in 1968, because I had just met Rudy in 67, and Rajneesh was the other Kundalini teacher, Kundalini yoga teacher. And I remember listening to him and meeting people around him, and I thought, this is crazy. They're teaching hyperventilation. You know, they're teaching some weird things and telling people this is going to get you to God. And I'm going, no, that's not right. But more and more people are going to that. And now I'm watching this TV show about how corrupted that became. And then I'm looking back even at my own lineage and the corruptions that I saw going on around me, and I realized, you know, this spiritual journey for most people is teaching you how to be you, and telling you who you are, and telling you you are wonderful and you are great and you are special, and if you do this you will be even bigger and better and more wonderful and more special, and you know, follow me, I am the path to you becoming this and that. It's complete bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit. Spiritual journey is really only one thing. It's to becoming that, not who. If you're trying to become who, you will be lost in the ignorance of separate self. And you are not a separate self. And this whole journey is into that which you are, which is all there is. All there is. And I know when I say this in words, it's like, oh, what is, you know, there's a concept going on in your heads of how am I all that there is. All I can tell you, if it's conceptualized, it's not the thing at all. That you are is unconceptual, unrealizable in the mental sense. But it is true, and I'll say knowable, because truth is true and knowable. And if you want to see that you are, I tell you in the simplest sense, open your eyes. It may not make sense to you. It may not make any sense at all. How do you figure that out? How can you be everything you're looking at? Everything you're hearing, everything you're breathing, everything you're feeling? How can you be everything? Can't answer that. But it is true. And the journey I've been on is showing me that it's true. And so I share that with you because I believe everybody can and will wake up to that. This is a little bit of a push, or a little bit of a helping quality. You know, this idea of help that Rudy talked about so much is something I care about very deeply, because most of us are not helped by life. We're hindered mostly by people around us, things around us, expectations, not meeting expectations, fitting into categories, fitting into levels of being that are hierarchical, and being at this level as opposed to that level, and then measuring yourself according to these strange concepts, and you're just endlessly trapped in that illusion. And how do you get out of that? Well, it's very hard to do by yourself. But at the core, you just ask for help. Who do you ask? Well, if you're lucky, you find a teacher. If you don't find a teacher, just say to the universe and to what we call God, help me, please. Help. Please help me. And the promise of all the great teachings is that that help arrives, and you will be led into realizing that you are that. You are everything that is. You are the totality and the absolute oneness of all that can be, and you'll never understand it, but you'll know it's true. I hate if this sounds abstract and teacherly and like something is to be done and you need to get there and you're going to get a diploma or whatever that all that stuff is. I hate that that's the way it comes across, because teachings come across like that. But mostly what I want this to be is inspiration to go in and find what I'm talking about, and to find it on a daily basis. So you arrive at a point, which I can only tell you from experience now, can become continual and ongoing. Not something you do once a day or twice a day. It becomes something that is foundationally real. All day long you walk around in a state, some people call it grace, but it's really a state of no words. So just remember, I am that. See where it takes you. Any questions?
I kind of have an academic question. I'm just thinking that got translated from Sanskrit or Hindi or whatever, and that is such an abstract word. Like, I wonder, like, is it really that in the original language?
Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It works. It works in English. I mean, it works for me.
Yeah.
That is
actually,
that.
How you described it, yes.
That is everything. Everything. That. And it's not personal, and it's not you in some exalted sense. It's beyond you. But you are already, even as I speak, that. And that's why they say it's only about realization. You know, it's not about becoming it. You can't become the thing you are. It's just seeing it. And all you can really kind of do, I think, is, one, maybe believe what I'm saying is true, and then look at everything around you all the time as that, and then figure out, how do I interact with myself, with the self, in the way that would be best for the self? How do I do that? I mean, you can see a lot of people who don't do that, and they seem to be winning the game in some ways. You know, they got the Ferraris, they've got the big houses, they're doing all these big things, and they appear to be winning until they get to the end and they have to let go of the who and the house and the Ferrari. And they go, but. You know, they work their whole life to get and have and be all that stuff, and then take it away like that. And you go, okay, so does that mean if I spend my whole life getting and having and accomplishing and doing all that stuff, it adds up to nothing? Yeah, kind of. And so if you discover that early on, then you can live a little bit differently. It doesn't mean you can't have, but it also means that if you do have, you better learn how to let go. And if you don't have, you better learn how not to care. Because caring about not having is just as big a problem as caring about letting go of what you have. It's all the same deal. Ultimately, it doesn't last. And there's no, this is not like an unexpected fact that comes out of the hidden secrets of the universe. It's right in front of us from the very first second. We don't last. But there is something that does last, and it's that. And beyond that, you are that. So you kind of do last, but not as a who, not as this, but this other grander thing. And how do you arrive at that awareness? Well, like I've said through this whole talk, go inside and find out what I'm talking about. Because you can go out and go into books, and you can go into teachings, and you can study the teachings of Christ and Buddha and Muhammad and on and on. You can get all of this informational stuff, which is fine, and that all goes to the impermanent outer who. But how do you take all that information into the source from which it arose in the first place? And that is, unfortunately, let go of all that knowledge, let go of all the teaching, let it be the inspiration to finding the truth of that. And when you find the truth of that, you are, I guess they call it, liberated. It's like, oh. And then you can put it into words if you want, or you can be really silent, and the best thing you can do with it is love what is. Love that. Love it. I mean, for me, it's an engagement of it, or an appreciation of it, or a witnessing of it that is, it kind of both produces love and tears, joy and sadness all at the same time, at a level that I have never known before. And I treasure it on one sense, and it's hard to handle, because it's so unendingly expansive and beautiful and deep and unknowable and all that stuff. And in the end, it's like, okay, shut up, just do it, just be it. And I get to that point every day, and then I come and sit in this class, and it does form into words. But trust me, I could do it without the words, because I think they limit it. In the minute they come out, they're limiting the whole truth of it. On the other hand, they help push us over the edge, push us into the deep end of the pool. So we go in and go figure it out. My grandson, we took Talia and Elijah on the train yesterday to Petaluma, because they haven't been on a train really. And my grandson was so scared to stand on the moving train, because you don't stand when you're moving. You sit. You sit in your one seat. And he got out of his seat for a minute, and he saw the train shake, and he jumped back in his seat. And then I watched over the course of the ride, mostly the ride back, he was surfing. He was standing in the aisle of the train, not holding on to anything, and he had found what he needed to find, that you can surf and move standing up while things are moving and life is changing around you. He felt so accomplished at the end of that trip. He had learned something, not through my teaching, not through words, just by being. Just being, he figured it out the way we figure it out. And it's a beautiful thing to watch that happen. And Talia was way ahead of him. I mean, she was running up and down the train. She was introducing herself to people. She was really having a great time. But you learn in stages, and in time, in life, you become very masterful of life. But the real ultimate mastery of life does not come from knowing stuff. It comes from letting go of all you know. So, trust me, do this. Just do it. Sit. People write me and go, how do I sit every day? Oh my God, I don't have time. And they give me the list of all the stuff that goes on. And I go, yeah, I get it. I get it. But then I say, look, I had a film career. I directed a movie. I had my father living with us for 6 years, and my mother-in-law for 9 years. I had in the house. There were 2 children. We had my wife and I had, we had big life. I went to the YMCA 3 times a week to go swimming. I mean, on and on and on. I sat every day. I found a half hour every morning to sit. How do you do it by waking up half an hour early? That's all. And you do it, and it changes the whole nature of your day. People say, well, I don't have time. Okay. You don't. Then don't. But there's a difference, and you'll notice that difference 40 years later. You will notice the difference in having committed to weaving in a kind of stillness into the pattern of your life, or a kind of gold thread into the tapestry of your life. It just gets shinier, it's more beautiful, it's more awakened, it's more realized, it's more joyful. So I encourage people to do it. And if you don't want to do it, it won't change the equation. It's your choice. And there's help for those who want to do it. Okay? Thank you.